Shalom uvracha, everyone. Happy Torah Tuesday. Erev Shabbat Parshat Tetzaveh, Erev Shabbat Zachor, Erev Purim. I always think that Parshat Tetzaveh gets little press this week, little coverage, because it's overshadowed by Parshat Zachor, by Purim. So I'd like to take this opportunity to focus with you together on a tiny aspect of Parshat Tetzaveh, of actually just the first pasuk, maybe giving us a little bit of insight into the parsha, or more so into ourselves as we try to continue to be Bnei Bnot Torah. Parshat Tetzaveh opens with the pasuk, Va'ata tetzaveh bnei Yisrael, v'yikchu elacha, shemen zayit zach katit lamaor laha'alot ner tamid. And you should command Bnei Israel, right? This is the parsha where Moshe's name is not mentioned. You should command Bnei Israel, and they will take for themselves, they will take shemen zayit zach, pure olive oil, katit, that is crushed, lamaor, laha'alot ner tamid, that it should be used for the light, for the ner tamid. And I want to just focus with you on the three last words of the pasuk, laha'alot ner tamid. To ignite, to light, to bring up a ner tamid, an eternal flame. That is the pshat of the pasuk. That is what the pasuk. My understanding is that is what the pasuk is describing. And I'd like us to sort of reinterpret that pasuk as we go through the next few minutes of some Hasidic Torah. The Degel Machane Ephraim, who is Rav Moshe Chaim Ephraim, he was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. He points out an interesting point, that the shemen zayit zach katit, crushed olive oil, right? The ner tamid is meant to be made out of the crushed olive, and it's something so small and something seemingly so insignificant. An olive is tiny, right? An olive is tiny, and the fact that it's crushed, it's even smaller. And he says that katit lamaor haynu ma shehaya mitchila katitu ma'uch v'namuch mamshich lo or she'tchila ir. That it's a lesson to us. It's something that is so small and often even crushed can be something that provides tremendous and beautiful light. So I think on the one hand we can see that on the national level, as Bnei Israel are a nation that is often crushed, is often tried to be put down, is often attempted to, there's been attempts to obliterate us off the face of the planet, and yet we continue hopefully to be that great light, a light unto ourselves, but more so a light unto the nations, to be the Or LaGoyim. And away from the national level for a second, onto the personal level also. Sometimes in our personal lives, in our individual lives, we feel down, we feel let down, we feel crushed even. And the Degel Machane Ephraim is saying to us that think of what the ner tamid is. Think of what that constant eternal flame is. It's made out of something that is seemingly nothing. So when we think to ourselves, who am I? What am I? What is my value? I'm a nothing. It's dafka from that point where we can move on and we can move up. And sometimes the vulnerability, and sometimes that feeling of who am I, is the birthplace of innovation, of creativity, and of change. And sometimes we need to feel that, to know that we can change something. If we're too high on ourselves and too high and mighty, we feel like we've got it all under control, and we can do it. And I think that when you're sometimes feeling inadequate, that gives you more of a drive to be that ner tamid. So that's an interesting point of the Degel Machane Ephraim. Moving on to the Kedushat Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev talks about that the concept of laha'alot ner tamid is more the concept of laha'alot is to constantly be rising, is to constantly be bringing yourself up. He says crisis is not necessarily a bad thing, right? He says people are going to go through crises in their life, and if you think that you're never going to have a crisis, then you're wrong. And he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu purposely uses the term laha'alot. And he says, Avor zeh asa Hashem yitbarach sheyeh ha'adam meruchak me'Hashem yitbarach. Dim hayu lo kol bnei adam avdim et Hashem yitbarach b'tmidut lo haya Hashem yitbarach mekabel ta'anug ki ta'anug tmidi eino ta'anug. אבל כשיש התרחקות, ואחר כך האדם משבר את כל המסכים ומדבק עצמו בעבודת השם, אז על ידי זה מגיע תענוג גדול להשם. I know it's a lot of Hebrew, but he says that if you constantly have this closeness, if it's constantly in front of you, if it's always there, sometimes you lose that special feeling, right? Something that you begin to take it for granted. So often, if you have that feeling of distance from God, or God has that feeling of distance from you, that it's working on a relationship and investing in a relationship is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And he says, let's focus on the word laha'alot, to rise and to constantly come up. That we're not necessarily talking about a one-time event, as the pasuk would imply, to ignite the ner tamid, to ignite an eternal flame. He says we're talking about something more permanent. We're talking about a constant state of aliyah, constant state of rising, a constant state of grappling, of struggling with God, of struggling with ourselves in order to perfect ourselves in the eyes of God. And that's the essence of or maybe that is the essence in that whole idea, that we can't always be on these amazing highs. But just because we can't be there doesn't mean that we should ever stop trying to be there. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev is telling us, you're not always going to have that sense of tamid, I am always there. But you can always have that sense of laha'alot, of trying to go up, of trying to move forward. And that's how I'd like us to reinterpret this pasuk, sort of. And instead of saying laha'alot ner, to light a candle that should be tamid, that should be the ner tamid, it should be constant, meaning I am lighting a flame that should be constant. Rather, I am constantly lighting a flame. If I had to phrase that in English, I'm constantly, the tamid is not, so the word constant is not necessarily about the ner, even though, yes, it is, in the Torah it is. The ner tamid is the constant flame. But Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev suggests, I think, that when we should look at the word tamid, we should look at the word constantly ole. We are laha'alot constantly. We're always trying to move ourselves forward. We're always trying to move ahead. And with thinking about the concept of moving forward and trying to move ahead, I think in the spirit of Purim, it's worth looking in a couple short points in Masechet Megillah. Point number one, two quick points. Point number one is Megillah Kaf Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemara says as follows: Mashal Adam shemavakshim mimenu kli gadol v'yesh lo. Domeh alav kikli katan, katan ve'en lo. Domeh alav kikli gadol. There's a mashal given here that someone that when you ask someone for something, a huge kli, a huge vessel, and he has it, okay, so it seems to him like a small vessel, like because he possesses it, it doesn't seem to him like a big deal. But if you ask someone for something and he doesn't have it, it seems to him like, oh, it's such a big deal, right? If someone's a millionaire and you ask him for $10,000, right? Okay, it's not such a big deal. He's a millionaire. What's $10,000 off his back? He doesn't see it as a big deal. But if you ask a poor man for $10,000, it's a huge deal. It's a huge burden on him. So the Torah, the Gemara says that's how the Gemara puts it, and I think that's how we should view Avodat Hashem. If you have that drive, if you have that yearning, if you have that desire to come to God, then it doesn't seem so heavy to go through life with that. It doesn't seem so heavy that going up that mountain, right? When you go up a mountain, you don't want to be carrying anything heavy. If you have that inner drive, if you have that inner motivation, then climbing that mountain is going to seem to you as a kli katan because you have it. So, okay, so you have so much of it, so you can, every day you can use a little bit of it for this challenge or that challenge. But if you don't have it, if you don't have that drive, if you don't have that yearning, if you don't have that desire, if you don't want it enough, then it's going to seem to you like a very heavy burden, and it's going to seem to you like something that is impossible to carry. So I think in the spirit of that Gemara, we should make sure that we see that we have that inner desire to constantly be going up, so that doesn't seem like a heavy burden to us, but rather something, okay, we're millionaires, so $10,000 here and there is not such a big deal. And finally, ending off quickly with the Gemara in Megillah, Kav Dalet Amud Bet. There's a story told that a man was walking and he sees a blind person at night, and he sees the blind person at night holding a torch. Amarti lo b'ni efukazo lamalacha, and I said to him, why are you holding this torch? You're blind. Amarli, he said to me, as long as the torch is in my hand, other people see me. ומצילני אותי מן הפתחים ומן הקוצים, מן הפחתים ומן הקוצים ומן הברקנים. That the torch isn't for me. The torch is that other people see me. And when they see me, they save me. Right? And when they see me, they say, oh, let me help this guy out. And I think that what the Gemara is saying is that sometimes things that make a blind person stumble, if others are around to help him, then he doesn't stumble, right? If you act in a certain way, if you present yourself in a certain way, and people take you seriously, and people hold you in high regard, and then you start to fail and you start to stumble, then people will come there and help you out and say, no, this is so not right for you. You shouldn't be doing this, right? You could do better. So sometimes we do things, or the way we act externally is what helps the people around us, the environment around us, the surrounding around us. Those that surround us really support who we are and what we do. So let's just chajah this for a very quick second, right? The pasuk tells us that you should take shemen zayit zach, you should take pure olive oil, and it's crushed to bring up the ner tamid, to ignite the ner tamid. Degel Machane Ephraim says, yeah, you take something and you crush it, and to its tiniest, the olive oil. The olive is something that is crushed and tiny, and that's what brings the great light. So, on a national level and on an individual level, sometimes we feel down, sometimes we feel crushed, but that enables us. That should encourage us to bring forward a great light, and not to make us feel that we can't move forward from that. The Kedushat Levi suggests that we turn this around a little bit, that we don't talk about lighting a fire that is constantly lit, that the ner itself is what tamid, but that we are the ones that are olet tamid. We are the ones that are constantly rising. Sometimes we fall, sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, but we're constantly there. Which reminds me right now, I know I'm taking a couple more minutes, of the story of the Malachei Elohim in Parshat Vayetze, where Yaakov dreams that the Malachei Elohim, the angels, are Olim V'Yardim, are going up and down the mountain. And then Tivat Shalom, the Shimshon Tfal Hirsch says, why are they going up and down the mountain? Right? Up and down the ladder? Right? Why don't they just go up and leave, or go down and get off the ladder? He says it's a mashal to the way people are in Judaism, right? Sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down, but you're never off the ladder. You stay on the ladder, you stay connected, and that's the halot. You're never off. You may be small, you may be crushed, but you're still trying, you're still investing. Then we mentioned two Gemaras. One that says that a mashal of someone who has a lot, and you ask him for some of it, it seems to him like no big deal because he has so much of it. Someone that has nothing or a little bit, when you ask him for something, it seems like a lot. So too our Torah and our Judaism, when we have a lot of it, when a lot of faith in ourselves and in God, when we're asked to act upon that, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Davening here, mitzvah there, okay, no big deal, that's who I am. But when we have a little drive and little motivation, and we don't feel that connection, and we have to have mincha, it seems like, oh my God, it's the biggest deal in the world. We ended off with the Gemara in Megillah Kaf Dalet Amud Bet, of a mashal of a blind person walking at night, and he has a torch, and someone says to him, why do you have the torch at night? You can't see anyway. And he says, no, I have the torch that other people can see me and help me out. So too, the way we act influences how those who surround us and those who know us and our friends and our chaver and our surroundings, that when they see us, they see us acting a certain way, the way we act externally, and they'll help us, along that way. That it's not something we have to do alone; it's something that we can be helped with our environment. So, Bezrat Hashem, the bracha this week, Parshat Tetzaveh, is that we should be zoche, not only to ignite a light that is constantly lit, but that we should constantly be lighting, constantly be enlightening, constantly be a light, constantly going up and trying and continuing to invest in our relationship with God, to invest in our relationship with Ben Adam L'Chavero. And Bezrat Hashem, if we're successful in doing that, we will really be people who are constantly moving forward. And when we constantly move forward, we will be able to make contributions that will be tamid, that will be constant.